Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari. Hi. Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Jai Hari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Govinda Shri Hare. Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada. Nitai Gora Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gora Hari Bol. Nitai Gora Pramanande, Hari Hari Bol. So today we're speaking from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 15, verses 24 to 26. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, as we're doing from 24, 25, and 26, text 24 has the purport, so that's the one we're going to be focusing on and the one that we'll chant together. But I'm just going to chant all the way through first and then go back to 24. So, Mahat Gunam Atmane Karotam Isha Kastava Kaistava Yate Satopi Esayam Bhavisyan Iti Vipralabdo Janavahasam Kumati Naveda. Prabhavo hi atmanastotam Jogapanti api visrutaha Hirmanta paramodaraha Parusam vavigahitam Vayam tva avidita loke Sutayapi varimabirihi Karambi katam atmanam Kapasisyama balavat. So now I'll go through the translations and then we'll go back and we'll recite the verse together. So it's a little bit. So the first translation of verse 24 is, how could an intelligent man, competent enough to possess such exalted qualities, allow his followers to praise him if he did not actually have them? Praising a man by saying that if he were educated, he might have become a great scholar or great personalities is nothing but a process of cheating. A foolish person who agrees to accept such praise does not know that such words simply insult him. Followed by, as a person with a sense of honor and magnanimity does not like to hear about his abominable actions, a person who is very famous and powerful does not like to hear himself praised. And finally, King Prithu continued, my dear devotees, headed by the Sutta, just now I am not very famous for my personal activities because I have not done anything praiseworthy you could glorify. Therefore, how could I engage you in praising my activities exactly like children? So let's go back to verse 24. I'll just recite it now. Mahad gunan atmani karatam ishaha Kastava kestava yate satopi Tesyam bhavisyan iti vipralabdo Janavahasam kumate naveda Mahadgunam atmani kurutam ishaha Kastava kestavat yesatopi Tesyam bhavisyaniti vipralabdo Janavasam kumatya naveda Mahadgunan atmani karotamishaha. Kastava kestava yate satopi. Tesyam bhavisyam iti virlabrado. Dhyana vahasam kumatirna veda. Please repeat. Vaishnavis? Translation. Oh, it's a different verse this way. I was thinking. So, translation. How could an intelligent man, competent enough to possess such exalted qualities, allow his followers to praise him if he did not actually have them? Praising a man by saying that if he were educated, he might become a great scholar or great personality is nothing but a process of cheating. A foolish person who agrees to accept such praise does not know that such words simply insult him. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. Ritu Maharaj was an incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as Lord Brahma and other demigods had already testified when they had presented the king with many heavenly gifts. Because he had just been coronated, however, he did not manifest his godly qualities in action. Therefore, he was not willing to accept the praise of the devotees. So-called incarnations of Godhead should therefore take lessons from the behavior of King Prithu. Demons without godly qualities should not accept false praise from their followers. So here we can see that King Prithu, he said that he didn't have the qualities that were being described. And of course, we understand that just previously, we were hearing about how actually the great sages understood him to be none other than a Shaktivesh avatar. They already knew of his coming and knew of his greatness. But this whole section of the Srimad Bhagavatam, King Prithu is showing us, what is it showing us? In a nutshell, it's ideal leadership. So he is exhibiting here qualities of the ideal leader. So he actually questions why they were using these words to describe him. Such humility. He said it is better to wait for these qualities to actually manifest in a person before you begin to praise them and attribute these qualities. Of course, like I said, he was speaking very humbly because he was concerned that the words of these great sages was going to go in vain. He had literally just been coronated. Despite this, of course, the sages all continued because they knew of his saintly character and they understood his great leadership qualities, and they had an understanding of what was going to be foretold in the coming years. And they obviously knew that he was Shaktivesh avatar. So Prithu explained nonetheless that qualified devotees know who is God and what God's qualities are, but they do not confuse this with ordinary persons. They do not think ordinary persons are possessing such divine qualities. So we can understand here, King Prithu is in the role of a very saintly king to guide his citizens onto the path of devotion to the Lord. So, where are we now? We're obviously not in that age. We have, dare I say, we have great saintly leaders who are leading us all back home, back to Godhead. We are in Kali Yuga, right? That's where we are today. And what is there in Kali Yuga? There's a number of qualities. Anyone can name them. Everyone is unfortunate, yes. Hypocrisy is there. Misguided, yes. Unlucky, yes. Yes, and it's always, there's quarrel and misunderstanding that's happening. And what happens in this situation is there are all people that have a cheating propensity. In fact, we all have a cheating propensity within us. And when we're in a situation with this atmosphere, those persons who have a stronger cheating propensity will take advantage of the situation. And so those who are cheaters, they will actually encourage their followers to praise them, although such praises are not valid, justified, or they're not qualified to get them, basically. Shri Shri Radha Govinda Dev Ki. So, when Srila Prabhupada was here, there was one devotee came to Srila Prabhupada very excited. He said, "Oh, Srila Prabhupada, I've met a man who says he's an incarnation of Krishna." Of course, what did Srila Prabhupada do when he heard this? Because this is actually in Calcutta. So Srila Prabhupada immediately dismissed this and he said, "In Calcutta, there is an incarnation on every street corner." So, in today's verse, you may have noticed there's a word, and I'm going to touch upon it a little later on, Vipra Labda. It stuck out to me because it reminded me of another word. Maybe it reminds you of another word too. So, in this case, in this verse, and this particular word, it is actually translated here as cheated. And this Sanskrit word is variously translated as being tricked, being deceived, or being cheated. And for those who I just mentioned, for those who are ready to accept or encourage unearned or unjustified praise, that is certainly a form of deception. So we read in the first canto, in chapter 15, which is about the Pandavas retiring from being kings. And where are they going? Does anyone remember? The Himalayas, yes. So they've retired from being kings and they're now going on pilgrimage to the Himalayas. I highly encourage any one of you to make that pilgrimage yourself one day and to go by foot. Now you can actually do some of it by helicopter, but that's cheating. To get the full experience, you should go by foot. Of course, now we can't go fully because there's areas which are not possible for our bodily strength to go through. There's some areas of very high altitude and ice, but we can do some of the pilgrimage. We can follow in the path of the Pandavas. Very nice experience. It will stay with you for the rest of your life. So over those 20 verses of this pilgrimage of the Pandavas, Sutta Goswami is narrating. Does anyone know what Sutta Goswami is specifically narrating? What's going on with Arjuna? What's just happened? He's distressed because where did Krishna go? Yes, Krishna has just departed. So Arjuna is completely grief-stricken. And he's very much in a mood of separation from Krishna after his departure. So in this 20 verses, Arjuna is describing this, all his different emotions that are going on in this mood of separation. And it is actually poetically described that his lotus-like heart has dried up. So Arjuna relates that all his prowess was actually on account of the support and encouragement by his best friend Krishna. Upon thinking about Krishna as his very best friend, Arjuna then describes that he had both joking and frank and serious talks with Krishna. And he laments more and more about how that in this mood of friendship with Krishna, at times he feels that he was lacking respect. In that verse, which is the first canto, 15th chapter, and verse 19, the same word, vipralabdha, is used, and here Srila Prabhupada actually describes it as misbehaved. So let's explore this word even more. In Vedic literature, we can understand that up until the beginning of this age that we're in now, how was the Vedic literature disseminated to others? Yes, it was spoken. It was passed down from a teacher to a student, then the student became the teacher, and so on. So this is how we have this wonderful lineage that goes right back through Lord Brahma to Krishna. So being an oral tradition passed down from teacher to student, different literary techniques have been used, and we can understand that when we look back at the many different shastras that are there. So different literary devices so that we can captivate the audience's attention. Even then, it was necessary to captivate an audience's attention, and now we have even shorter attention spans. So we try our best. So, for example, to hold the attention of an audience, such as the sages of the Naimisharanya forest did, they used many different techniques and devices. So we can read in the Natya Shastra in chapter 24, and also in the second chapter of the Abhinaya Sara Samadutta, that there are 8 moods of heroes and heroines described. These are called the Asta Nayika, which is so nice. I actually have the pleasure to have known a wonderful Vaishnavi who is called Nayika, And she explained to me one day, because I said, oh, I never heard this name. It means it means heroine, like the female hero. And these 8 moods are described again and again in various contexts. So what do we mean by moods? Moods are, it's like the mellows, the rasas, and they are used for us to try to understand these different mellows and rasas that go on between Krishna and his different associates and devotees. So they are distressed by separation and subjugated and controlled through love, or engaged, or rather enraged, or offended, etc. The list goes on. And of these 8 moods, one of them is vipralabdha. So in the Gita Govinda, which is a Gaudiya text, which is beloved by Lord Chaitanya, the poet Jayadev elaborates these 8 moods as pertaining to Radha's rasa with Krishna. It's so beautiful. And vipralabdha is something which happened when Radha actually became deceived by a broken promise. So vipralabdha is understood to be, in this sense, to be deceived by a broken promise, and is one of the moods. So just to put it into context for anyone who is wondering about the Gita Govinda, in Jagannath Puri temple, the Gita Govinda is sung every single evening, actually since the time of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And this mood, this mellow of vipralabdha, is represented in theatre, art, drama, dance, and music. And there are numerous depictions of Radha breaking her necklace in frustration for having been deceived by Krishna. So it's hard to fully, it's impossible to fully understand the different mellows, rasas, pastimes that go on between the most divine couple, Shri Radha and Krishna. So this word, vipralabdha, if we break it down, this V means like to take apart or away, and pra is before, and lab is to obtain. I don't know, does anyone think of a word that it reminds them of? Anything that springs to mind, this vipralabdha? Vipralamba, yes, exactly. Very close word, which has the same etymology. Like if you break it down, it's the same thing. V apart, pra before, and lab to take or obtain. And vipralamba, actually, it's considered to be the highest mood of devotion, of bhav, in our Gaudiya Vaishnava tradition, where separation from Krishna is experienced as the most painful, yet the most ecstatic form of love. So this word is about the experience of being separated from the beloved. Similarly, as we were hearing how Arjuna was in his individual way, was feeling this separation from Krishna so painfully, so much so that his lotus heart had dried up. So we can understand that these words are related. They have a root. I'm not a Sanskrit scholar, but I thought that was an interesting connection and worthy of noting here. And in a sense, we can understand that when we deceive, what are we doing? When we deceive in this context, if vipralamba is to, experience separation. So when we deceive, are we perhaps we're separating ourselves more in this way. Something to think about. So, Srila Prabhupada often said that Krishna consciousness is for the intelligent class of people. That even though in other phrases it's simple for the simple, we can understand that, especially if any of us have spent any time in any of our rural farm communities or have been to rural India. You can understand there that it's very goes hand in hand with this agrarian lifestyle. But Srila Prabhupada says that Krishna consciousness is for the intelligent class of people. However, in today's verse we read that it says in the translation that Prithu Maharaj is saying, how could an intelligent man allow his followers to falsely praise him? And it ends with saying, a foolish person who agrees to accept such praise does not know such words, simply insult him. So, when I read this, I immediately started to think about it in the context of, when we recite Srila Prabhupada's pranam mantra, we know the translation of that, right? Some of us may know the translation. And we understand his mission, his purpose. So, Srila Prabhupada established ISKCON to counter the false propaganda of atheistic science and Mayavad philosophy. So let's look at that a little more, because I know it's not so often discussed amongst devotees, and perhaps it's known to those who come from the land of Bharat. But just so that we can discuss it a little bit here, there is a belief called monism, which proposes that every single soul all together makes up God. Okay? That everyone in total is God, or that God is presently broken up into many little pieces. These people describe themselves as Brahmavadis, for they propose that there is only Brahman, God. But presently, we, as all those little pieces, do not realize this because of who? Because of Maya. And who do we understand Maya is? What does Maya mean in the Sanskrit? That which is not, or typically it's translated in the English language as illusion. So, however, devotees who know that they are eternally distinct from God they refute this by saying, but where does Maya come from? If you're saying there's all there is Brahman, but then there is something called Maya that's making Brahman forgetful. And where did this Maya come from? How did this come to be? So, if there is nothing but Brahman, and if you cannot tell us of this mysterious origin of Maya that can cover God and make God forget that he is God, then Maya, or illusion, is greater than God himself. So you are actually Mayavadis. So that's where this is coming from, this phrase. As you revere Maya over Brahman. So we are, for those who do go to the Himalayas, or have been to the Himalayas, you'll see many people who are Mayavadis or Brahmavadis. And it's only us that call them Mayavadis, the Vaishnava devotees of Krishna or Vishnu. So, we understand that Srila Prabhupada was always very strong against this understanding. His mission was to inform the world that this was an incorrect way of understanding who is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So thinking we are God is cheating. It's vipralabdha, cheating ourselves and thinking that we are so great. So genuine spiritual life necessitates a humble attitude. So, in other words, we're not thinking that we're full of amazing qualities, but we're understanding that who is the reservoir of all good qualities? Krishna, yes. Thank you. Krishna is known as Purna Avatar, complete manifestation of all 64 transcendental qualities. And our daily meditation should be of gratitude. Thankful to all the devotees who assisted us and encouraged us. Just like Arjuna was saying, that all of his prowess, all of his might, all of this was down to Krishna's encouragement and support. So equally we can understand that it's important to offer some level of praise and gratitude to our fellow brothers and sisters, our fellow devotees. This made me think of how this happens as well, even in a material circumstance. When someone goes to collect a great prize, the Grammy Award, the Golden Globes, an Oscar, when they go to stand up on that podium and take this trophy, what do they do? What is the first thing that they do? Shout outs. They do shout outs. But not generally, they will express their gratitude and their thanks, and they will thank all of the people that got them to where they are at that moment, to be able to stand there and hold that award. They understand, like even, famous actresses, musicians, CEOs of big companies, when they receive an award, they are actually thanking all those persons who helped them to get there on that day. In the same way that we're thanking the whole of our parampara. We're knowing that it's thanks to them and all of the Vaishnavas that are around us, all of the Vaishnavas we've interacted with that have got us to where we are at this very moment. And by doing that, we can always be grateful. We can always have gratitude. And we know that we're never alone. We know that we're always supported by the devotees. So, another element that comes up here is, of course, Maharaj Prithu. He's receiving, he's actually Krishna himself, so he's receiving praise from those who are actually, as well as the sages, but also from those who are technically, they're junior to him. Of course, everyone is junior, but so in our daily practice, in our lives, we can reflect upon how when we receive praise from those who are our peers, those whom we actually look up from, if, we hope that one day we'll achieve that kind of a praise. Maybe. But when we actually receive that praise, if we do, this is very meaningful. And it really does a lot to encourage us. Because, King Prithu is saying here about how, it's hinted upon about how when we receive praise from those who are, for example, our citizens or those who we are looking after, that it's not as valued in the same way. It doesn't have so much of a currency. I remember when I was I had recently joined and I joined in Scotland. And in Scotland, we had a kirtan band, and I was part of the kirtan band. And we would often travel and go to these, what I call mind and body fairs. So at those places, they would have various things, people with crystals, people doing Reiki, people doing alternative therapies, and people doing tarot readings and fortune thing. And we would be there to do some kirtan. And it was a nice thing to be able to do. We would travel to different events like this. And I remember one time, it was actually around my birthday, which I don't tell people about, but I knew. And I thought, oh, I have some spare time. And yeah, it's kind of interesting. So I went around the fair. I examined the stones. I thought, well, yeah, this is interesting. There's some quality to the stone. It has, it's a physical object. It's interesting. But I thought, whatever. And then I went around. I saw another thing. I asked about what is Reiki, and I thought, no, it's not for me. And then I stopped at this lady. She was reading the cards. And I was very skeptical. I was like, what is this thing? But I thought, I'd like to speak to her, because I had spoken to each of the different people, because I'm open-minded. I like to learn about different people's belief systems and what puts them on a particular spiritual path. And does it meet anywhere? And I was actually very pleasantly surprised by this lady. She revealed to me that she had a level of God consciousness, whereas the other people that I had met were more about, this kind of more this Brahmavadi point of view. And that caught my attention. And then I started to tell her something. I can't actually remember the exact thing. But what she told me has stuck with me I often think about it, and it's interesting. She said to me, what you're talking about, she said, is a copyright issue. So I'm going to unpack that. She was basically telling me not to strive for recognition, because at the time I was confused about, I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was something to do with I think it was whether or not I was not wanting to put my name on the CD cover. And everyone was upset with me, and I was thinking, became confused by this. And so she told me, do not strive for recognition. And she actually said, because God sees everything that you do. And this was really powerful, because of course we know this, but this was coming from someone from a completely different line. But she also understood this, a level of God consciousness. So it stuck with me. And yes, I recall that conversation quite vividly, still to this day. So we can look at that and understand, just in the same way that there is divine justice. Like sometimes something is happening and it's unjust, and there's this that everyone's thinking something has to be done about this, and that's it's true that something has to be done, but something's already being done. It's already also being recorded, and there will always be a divine justice. It just won't necessarily happen within our lifetime. What is our lifetime? It's actually it's very small. It's very short. And there will be some result that happens. And if we're able to actually reconciliate in that and understand, okay, I'm peaceful. I understand that there is, that Krishna is there, that he is dealing with this. And of course, it's not always that I'm saying a theoretical thing in many things, but if we can try to attain such a level of consciousness, That is Krishna consciousness. So another thing here is there was an understanding of humility that Prithu Maharaj had. So humility, we talk about it and we know we want it. We know we want humility. We know we want this quality. We know we want to build it into our character. So I thought to approach this from the topic of sincerity. Because when we sincerely try to do something, and we know devotees are always telling us, don't be concerned about the results. But we try not to be concerned about the results, but we think about the result, So the thing is the more sincere that we become, the more sincerely we're trying, and we actually always we're like having a little competition within ourselves, not outwardly. That's not the quality that's going to help us to become more humble. But when we're like with our own selves, trying to each time make that offering better than the last time, and to improve and try and find a way to get our devotion to bring us more closer to Krishna, then we'll not consider that any of our prior efforts or any of the effort that we just did like a nanosecond ago is praiseworthy at all. Because we're always thinking, no, I can strive a little more, I can strive more, because we're on that path to perfection. So when we sincerely trying to always, make it a little bit better, do a little bit more, just inwardly, we're having this conversation inside ourselves, then we know that that nothing we're really doing is particularly having any praise, is worthy of any praise, because we're like, no, but this thing, the chutney wasn't quite right. It didn't quite have that, it wasn't quite sweet enough, wasn't quite hot enough. Or the idli wasn't quite fluffy enough. Next time, I'm going to do this and this, and it's going to be that better. And then the next time you do it, something else was missing. There wasn't quite enough spicing in the chunks there. And so, like this, we're thinking, how can I progress on this path to perfection? So, a notable day today. Today is the disappearance of Sri Govinda Ghosh. So, he holds a unique place in the Leela of Lord Chaitanya, as whenever Sri Govinda Ghosh would sing, then Lord Chaitanya would dance in ecstasy. He had a very celestial voice and very solid devotional attitude. And as such, Lord Chaitanya reciprocated with him in this way. Sri Govinda Ghosh's life remains a foundational story of Gaudiya Vaishnava tradition, teaching us that the Lord is truly Bhaktavatsala, the lover and the maintainer of the devotees. Govinda Ghosh participated in important events such as Kirtans at Srivas Angan, where Lord Chaitanya started the congregational Sankirtan movement, and also the wonderful civil disobedience march to Chand Kazi's house, as well as the gatherings at the home of Raghava Pandit in Puri, who's the devotee who was supplying Lord Chaitanya with prasadam whilst he was residing there. So I have 9 minutes if anyone has any comments or questions. Tulsi Prabhu, yes, we saw him. Oh, Masterji, thank you.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Thank you very much for such inspiring and practical class. It's always important to have that practical application because, as you very well said, we are not living in the Vedic times. This is Kali Yoga, and we have to make the best of according to time, place, and circumstances. So thank you very much. As you were talking, I was reminded of this is the dress of a devotee. What is the dress? The dress of a devotee is the character. And Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told, please correct me if I'm wrong, Sanatana Goswami, the Vaishnava etiquette is the ornaments. Mm-hmm. So when if the humility and the quality that we have to observe, I think that you were just right on that. And humility is not easy to work, but something that we definitely have to work on that. And being, you mentioned at the beginning, you're leaders, all of you are leaders, everyone is a leader in his own capacity. And to keep these qualities, we have to work. And there's a little bit, competition here and there. Prabhupada says, rather, there's going to be always competition to see who serves better or who does the better things, but never putting people down and always, coming and holding hands. And that's the power of association. And I just want to congratulate you. I've seen you going up and down here and there, all of you, seeing everyone with a smile, sharing. And this is only possible when the association, when these principles and these qualities are there. So thank you. Thank you and thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much for the class. Many nice points. A couple of things. You were mentioning the pervasiveness of Mayavad and atheistic view, and it's so important to remember how when one excludes God from the picture, then we believe that we are our own producers, and that automatically creates fierce competition among people. They don't understand that we need to connect to the source, and everyone's connected to the source who's having some kind of glorious character come through them. But if you forget about that, the whole picture becomes distorted. Yeah. So thanks for that reminder. The other thing is you reminded me of a point I overlooked the other day, lecture on a similar theme. What is the best approach to take when we do get praise and appreciation? And the approach that was recommended to me is that don't think you're great, but think that you are fortunate. Haribol.
Jai, thank you. Tulsi Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for the nice class. I was just thinking on the point of Prithu Maharaj not wanting to accept any recognition, any glorification. And it looks like, to some extent, nowadays in our movement is not exactly like that. Rather, sometimes we may see even devotees a little bit kind of fighting for prestige, for recognition, for being recognized from others. Kind of, it's on a material platform, actually. So that's why there is like a tendency, some services, they become more prestigious than another services. Like devotees, they would fight maybe for giving a class or for making special arati on a special day, or leading the kirtan on a kirtan meva like in the best time slot. But you don't see devotees fighting who will take like the pile of pots in the kitchen or something like that. So it shows that somehow our idea that devotional service is absolute is a little bit wiped out somehow with the time. Like in this verse in Bhagavad Gita, it is said, Evam para praptami mam rajarshyo vidu sakale neha mahata. Somehow, with the passage of time, the science appears to be lost. So somehow, it looks like that lately devotees, they are kind of more ready to fight for prestige, whereas we know that the philosophy of bhakti prestige is not about prestige. It's about getting a recognition from Krishna. Mm-hmm. And this recognition can be in any position. It doesn't matter who you are and what exactly service you're doing. So would you like to comment on this? If you like, of course.
Yeah, actually made me think of how not so many years ago, devotees were so guarded against this that when the Mahaprasadam came, rather than having options of saying, yes, I will have this piece and I'll have this, which is how we are now. This is just the first thing that came to my mind. You would just get kind of like a mixture of a scoop of mixed things because they were so guarded in a, against this idea of thinking that one thing could have a better quality over another thing. And as well, of course, there were also a lot more, like even just 10, 20 years ago, there were a lot more persons in the ashram, and I guess this would probably have been a faster way as well. But my understanding is it comes from this this root feeling of knowledge that all, like Tulsi was saying, that all the savor is actually absolute, and that it's the same. Like if we're cleaning the temple or if we're offering the arti, this is actually equal in the eyes of Krishna. It takes for us, the person who's practicing Krishna consciousness, to have an awareness and an intention to understand that. And that is actually putting us on that path to actually what is Krishna consciousness. Because we understand that this desire for prestige, it's known as the last snare that can catch us. So someone could be, they're all the steps, they're getting there, they're going there, and then that thing, that desire for recognition and prestige can catch even some of the very greatest practitioners. And it's so interesting that, the personality of Maya, that she does this, that she's testing us and trying to make sure that we get every opportunity to actually understand what is unconditional love. Another thing that springs to my mind just on that note is that I remember when I was I think it had been 2 years in the movement, and I was helping, I was assisting the pujaris. So in Scotland, it's a very skeleton crew, like super duper. Like it's the same. Sometimes it can be the same pujari that cooks the offering and does the arti and the whole thing. So I would help clean the kitchen for that pujari. And I have a few stories connected to that. But I would also get a lot of nourishment from that experience, speaking to such amazing devotees that were so steadfast, so dedicated to what they were doing. And one of them said to me, I was listening to something about, again, touching on, this process is simple. It's actually a simple process, and it's, sublime and like that. And I was thinking, yeah, this is simple. Like, what is the problem? I was saying like this. And then this pujari just turned to me and said, and I'll never forget, and it just looked me in the eyes and said, this is a very deep process. And it meant a lot coming from such a person who was doing so much day in and day out, who I was just simply assisting like that. So, yes. We learn more and more each day in the association of one another. We can never forget that this is a team sport. Bhakti is best practiced as a team. Whereas other schools of thought, maybe you may be able to go off on your own and sit by yourself and this kind of stuff. That's not what we are doing here. We're doing this all together. We need to support one another. We need to offer, support and encouragement to those who are junior to us. We need to try to find ways which we can serve those who are senior to us. And we need to make friendship with those who are on the same level. That's very important. My Guru Maharaj always used to say, you need friends in Krishna consciousness. If you don't have friends, then what happens? The process becomes very like the desert, dry. So this is a very important thing not to forget. Okay, it's a few moments past 9. Thank you all so much. Srila Prabhupada ki. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki.